it's Hip at Crafty Hope and welcome. I am working on day 54 of ICAD. ICAD is Index Carded Day. It is a challenge from Tammy Garcia of Daisy Yellow. I'll have information and links below. Tammy's prompt for today was wander, which I thought I might use, and I kind of do, but it's a bit of a stretch. And then my friend Nina Fickett has a prompt, which is bubble wrap, and that's the mixed media ICAD prompt. And I knew I was going to use that. You can see my little bit of bubble wrap up there in the left. Now, I have been trying to work through a couple of scrap boxes on these iCads so that I, can get rid of some of the scraps and use some other papers. So if you saw that right there at the beginning, I went ahead and transferred all the stuff. It was just a little bit from one scrap box into the other. So I am down to just one scrap box, y'all. I am pretty excited about that. And when I did that, there were a couple little bits of things that were just kind of floating at the bottom of that one I emptied. So I just dumped that on my desk and decided anything that was worth using was going to go on this card today. And I'm finding that using these scraps is a great way for me. It's kind of a warm up. It's mindless, just using some glue, sticking some things down. It gets over that fear of the blank page and it adds some stability to these kind of thin index cards. So like I said, I'm using my glue stick and sticking some things down. And this one was so random because I was just using those little, as Tiffany of Southern Gals Design says, giblets. I like to call it flotsam and jetsam. Just the stuff that's kind of floating around. So I am sticking these things down, like I said, with my glue stick. I found those eyes there, which came from another project. I think that was a Seek, Gather, Create I did. I'll put a link to that up in the upper right where I used a bunch of those eyes. But I really had no direction with this one. And you saw I just scraped off a few pieces that were just far too small to really even fiddle with. So, but anything that was big enough to go down is going down. I've kept a few larger pieces aside that I thought would be fun. And I'm going for this. Now, I'm trying to make up a little bit for yesterday's card. I know some of y'all were a little disappointed in it. I did struggle, and today I was trying not to struggle. I was trying to just create for the fun of creating and not overthink it too much. And I think I got there. I really like today's card. I hope y'all do too. So we are finishing up some of this collage I've stuck down. Y'all, that is the waste off the back of some drywall joint tape, but I love this stuff. Like the backing is even good. You can just stick it down with a glue stick. So I keep that too. This is why I have so many scraps. Seriously, I keep all these little things. That little bit of fabric went down. And I think when I put it down, I decided I needed more fabric on here. So there was a square of this red polka dotted fabric. It doesn't go with anything on this card except it's got dots. I'm just now seeing there is a dot theme because, and I'm going to continue it in just a second. And then there's a couple pieces of tea bag there that I'm going to go ahead and stick on my card because I need to get it out of my stash. And it adds a really neat, I think I put down two pieces. That first piece I put down, you see in the end result a little bit more than the second piece. But yeah, so, excuse me. So I'm going to look at it. I want to trim it first, and then I'm going to look at it for just a second and try to decide the next thing I want to do. And I decide that that's going to be to pull in my bubble wrap. Now, there's a bunch of different ways you can use bubble wrap. One of my favorite is on a jelly plate. But what I decided to do was to just use it as a stamp, kind of. So I'm going to take my little brayer and some gesso and roll a bit of gesso onto the bubble wrap. Yep. So just like this, rolling that gesso. I could have painted it on, but that brayer was sitting on my desk from yesterday, maybe. So yeah, I decided to use it. And I'm just going to stamp this all over my card, and I'm loving it. And here's where I'm kind of picking up some of that polka dot theme because I've got that waste from the drywall tape up there on the right and the dots on that red fabric. And I don't know, so I was really loving I guess the stamping of the bubble wrap, so I tried to get some more on there. I'm like, well, what more is left on my brayer? Let's play with this. So I'm going to stick that down a little bit more. And this this card took me about half an hour, I guess, to make. I sped this up and cut out some of my fiddling. It wasn't a struggle like yesterday was, but it was a bit of a figuring some things out. So I'm looking at those eyes and I move them around and I've got this like, oh, it's a grunge board arrow, and I was like, no, that's not gonna work. So I'm moving those eyes around. I reach over my scrap box and realize, oh, first I still had embroidery floss from the other day sitting on my desk. So I took this dark gray off, and there was this piece of dyed cheesecloth, like coffee dyed cheesecloth, just sitting at the top of my scrap box. So I grabbed it, thinking, okay, I could back the eyes with that maybe, and stitch all this on. And I was like, no, the eyes just aren't speaking to me. So I gave it a minute. I went through one of my focal boxes and I found this photo of this man and this little boy. Their names are Clarence and Vic. I'll show the back of the card in a minute. And while I was sorting through that focal box, I found this button that apparently got cut off some clothes because the thread is still there. And y'all, I love that. I love when the thread from the original garment is still there. So I'm going to leave that on there. And I went ahead and dried my card real quick because it was still kind of tacky, and decided I needed to edge up the card a little bit. So I used my Stabilo All, and I'm going to activate it with a wet paintbrush and just kind of smear that around a little. And while I'm doing that, I'm thinking, okay, well, there's only really one dark black spot on here. So I'm going to splash a little bit of that Stabilo onto my card. So I'll activate it straight off the end of my Stabilo pencil. You'll see it in just a second. So I get some water. Yeah, just like this. Lazy. And then I'm splashing it onto the card. Some splatter. Can't, y'all, if you've seen my videos, I love a little bit of splatter to kind of integrate everything. And it didn't add a touch of black, but I'll get more black on here in just a minute. So I'm going to start playing with my picture and my button and stack. And and I was going to tell you that I picked that picture in general because the Daisy Yellow prompt was wander, and I thought I was going to get the word wander on here, but that just didn't work. But Clarence and Vic there are in front of a car, which, you can go wandering in your car. So I thought that kind of travel-ish kind of felt right. So I glued them down with a bit of matte gel medium, and I'm going to use the same matte gel to glue down that little scrap of, y'all, this is why I keep scraps, that little bbit of cheesecloth. But I knew the button needed something a little bit heavier, so I'm using a bit of tacky glue to get my button down, especially in this short amount of time. I just needed something quick that would stick it down. So I pulled out my big chat stickers. I think that's what they're called. Yeah. And I couldn't find the word wander because apparently I'd already used it. So I decided possibility would work. So I'm going to stick it down, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm done. This is good. But the edges of the picture just weren't sticking out enough to me. So I grabbed that Stabilo again and go around one edge of the picture, and I'll activate that and just go around it. And here I'm really thinking, okay, I'm finishing this up, no big deal. But then when I look at it again, I realize I still don't have quite enough dark on the card, and I needed something, especially up in that upper left corner that I don't know, felt dark. And so I grab that embroidery floss again, bring it back in. And I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle, and yep. And so I'll skip ahead so you don't have to see me thread my needle and tie the knot and all that. And I am just pre-punching a hole because what I really wanted to do was do a series of little X's. I don't know why, but little X's felt right. And I could have done that with a pen or my Stabilo or something else, but that thread was calling out to me. I do love to do a couple stitches in paper. So I did the first little X and realized that the needle I had picked out, the head of it was massive and was making these huge gaping holes, or at least that's how it felt to me. So I grabbed a different needle. This one I'm gonna have to work with a little bit more. It's thinner, so it's a little more fiddly. So, but as you can see, I'm pre-punching my holes because I knew I just want little X's, and I'm going to do 3 little sections of X's with this kind of dark gray brownie, I don't know, embroidery floss. And it just makes me happy. There's something, and I've said it in other videos, there's something I love about the sound of like the thread pulling through the paper. it's just, it's just yummy. So I decided to move that, and like I said, I'm like I keep saying, like I said, um, as I mentioned, I want these in a couple different sections on the card. So I'm going to do 3 because, you know, the odd number thing. And that little upper left corner of the picture felt kind of blank, so I just made sure I put it there. But I didn't want it. There's a windmill kind of in the background of this picture. You'll see it in the detail shots at the end that I wanted to make sure I didn't cover up because it's kind of a neat detail, just kind of in the background of this photo. So I'll do this little area, and then I will do over by the button just to kind of go ahead and bring that detail across the card. And yeah, this I probably could have cut some of this out, but I wanted you to see how I do this. I'm making these choices, pre-punching these holes. So I knew right there by the button I wanted more. So, and I'm making sure too that when I make a couple of these X's, I'm going over the edge of the card, of the picture, and that kind of helps make sure that the picture itself is kind of stitched down too. So I thought that was kind of a neat element. Granted, being on the picture stitches it down, but I like the idea of going off. It helps it kind of, that detail kind of bleed off from it so that it's not isolated just on the photo. And so when I get done with my third little X here in just a second, I'm going to look at my card again and realize that the word possibility to me just doesn't seem to be quite enough. And maybe it's the idea of those eyeballs that I had pulled out earlier, but I decided to add the word see just above the possibility using those big chat stickers. So first I'm going to tie off my thread so it's secure, and I'll probably put a little bit of masking tape over the top of this because I do write on the back of these cards. So I'll put a little masking tape later. Y'all won't see that. And like I said, I thought maybe I was done. I looked at it and I was like, no, I need something else. So I'm going to pull out there and hope, I had my fingers crossed that the word see was in there, and it was. So I'm going to stick that down, and then I am done with this card, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Have a great Sunday. Bye.